10 years after the Supreme Court legalized same-sex marriage nationwide, the issue is once again making headlines. This time, reignited by a familiar name, Kim Davis. The echoes of that historic 2015 decision, which granted marriage equality to millions of Americans, are reverberating through the nation's courts and communities, reminding us that even landmark rulings can face new challenges. Kim Davis, the former Kentucky County Clerk who became a national figure for refusing to issue marriage licenses to same-sex couples, is now at the center of a renewed legal battle. She's asking the Supreme Court to revisit and potentially overturn the very decision that made her a household name. Her actions in 2015 sparked protests, lawsuits, and a fierce debate about religious freedom versus civil rights, a debate that still resonates today. As the nation marks the anniversary of marriage equality, the justices are quietly weighing whether to hear Davis's appeal, a move that could reopen a debate many thought was settled. The possibility of the court revisiting this issue has stirred both hope and anxiety, as advocates on both sides prepare for another chapter in the ongoing struggle over LGBTQ+ rights. This case isn't just about one clerk. It's about the Supreme Court's power and the durability of its decisions, especially after the reversal of Roe v. Wade. The question now is whether the court's landmark rulings can withstand political and social pressures, or if they are vulnerable to being undone by new legal challenges and shifting judicial philosophies. Davis's challenge directly targets Obergefell v. Hodges, the ruling that changed millions of lives and reshaped the legal landscape for LGBTQ+ Americans. The Supreme Court now faces a pivotal moment, one that will force it to confront its own legacy, the meaning of equality under the law, and the real-world impact of a possible reversal on families and communities across the country. To truly understand what's at stake, we need to revisit the original Obergefell decision, retrace Kim Davis's journey from local clerk to national symbol, and explore the complex legal path that has brought this issue back to the highest court in the land. The story is far from over, and its outcome could shape the future of civil rights in America. On June 26, 2015, the Supreme Court's 5-4 decision in Obergefell v. Hodges made same-sex marriage legal in all 50 states. Justice Kennedy's majority opinion spoke of dignity, love, and the right to marry, granting same-sex couples the same legal rights as everyone else. The ruling was a victory decades in the making, instantly changing the lives of couples nationwide. But the decision was deeply divisive. 4 justices dissented, warning the court was overreaching and that marriage should be defined by the people, not judges. Their dissents laid the groundwork for future challenges, arguing Obergefell was a break from legal tradition. While many celebrated, others vowed to fight on, setting the stage for the next chapter in the battle over marriage equality. Just months later, a Kentucky county clerk would become the face of that resistance. After Obergefell, most officials complied with the new law, but Kim Davis in Rowan County, Kentucky, refused to issue any marriage licenses, citing her Christian beliefs. Her stand drew national attention as couples, including David Ermold and David Moore, were repeatedly denied licenses, sparking viral confrontations and a fierce debate over religious freedom versus civil rights. Supporters saw Davis as a hero for religious liberty. Critics called her actions discriminatory and a threat to the rule of law. Lawsuits quickly followed, with the ACLU arguing Davis was using her office to impose her beliefs and violate citizens' rights. The standoff escalated, symbolizing the nation's deep divisions after Obergefell. The central question: where does religious freedom end and civil rights begin? Davis's refusal led to a showdown in federal court. In September 2015, Judge David Bunning found her in contempt and sent her to jail for 5 days. Her jailing made her a national symbol for religious conservatives, sparking protests and political support. Davis was released only after her deputies agreed to issue licenses without her name, a compromise later cemented by a Kentucky law. But the legal fight continued. Couples denied licenses sued Davis for violating their rights. In 2023, a jury ordered her to pay $360,000 in damages and legal fees. Davis appealed, claiming qualified immunity as a government official, but the Sixth Circuit rejected her argument in 2025. With no relief from lower courts, Davis took her case to the Supreme Court. Her fight was no longer just personal, it was about the future of marriage equality itself. In July 2025, Davis's legal team took a bold step, petitioning the Supreme Court of the United States. Their appeal centered on two major arguments. First, that Davis should not be held personally liable for damages because her actions were motivated by her deeply held religious beliefs, and second, that the landmark Obergefell v. Hodges decision should be reconsidered. The legal team contended that the 2015 Obergefell ruling, which legalized same-sex marriage nationwide, had overstepped constitutional boundaries and created a new right not grounded in the nation's history or traditions. They argued that the Supreme Court's decision ignored centuries of precedent and the original understanding of marriage, and that such a significant change should be left to the states and their legislatures, not imposed by judicial decree. By urging the court to return the authority over marriage laws to the states, Davis's team hoped to reignite a national debate and shift the balance of power away from federal courts. This legal strategy closely mirrors the approach that ultimately led to the reversal of Roe v. Wade, a decision that had stood for nearly half a century before being overturned. With a conservative majority now sitting on the Supreme Court, Davis's supporters believe the time is ripe for a major shift in constitutional interpretation. In November, the justices gathered behind closed doors for a private conference, weighing the legal arguments and the potential national impact of taking up the case. If the Supreme Court agrees to hear the case, it could set the stage for a new landmark ruling, one that might redefine the future of marriage equality in America and affect millions of lives. If the court declines, the lower court's decision will remain in effect, and Obergefell will continue to be the law of the land, at least for now. The stakes could not be higher. The outcome will not only affect Davis and those directly involved, but could also have sweeping consequences for civil rights, religious liberty, and the balance of power between states and the federal government. As the nation watches, the Supreme Court's next move could fundamentally reshape the legal landscape and set a precedent for generations to come. Across the country, people wait anxiously, wondering if marriage equality will once again be up for debate and what the future holds for the rights of all Americans. The Supreme Court is divided. Justice Clarence Thomas has openly called for overturning Obergefell, and Justice Alito remains a critic, though he's cautious about reversing precedent. Chief Justice Roberts, another original dissenter, has stayed mostly silent, focused on the court's reputation. Newer conservative justices like Amy Coney Barrett weigh the disruption a reversal would cause for families who've relied on the ruling. Even among conservatives, there's no consensus. Some urge caution, others want change. The court's three liberals would almost certainly uphold marriage equality. Whether the court reopens this issue depends on whether 4 justices see a reason to revisit it, and if 5 would actually overturn a decade-old right. If Obergefell is overturned, the right to same-sex marriage disappears at the federal level, and states regain control. The country would become a patchwork, some states protecting marriage equality, others banning it outright. Old state laws defining marriage as between a man and a woman could snap back into effect, instantly making same-sex marriage illegal in many places. This could invalidate existing marriages, creating chaos over property, custody, and legal rights for families. Some states would act to protect marriage equality, while others would restrict it, forcing couples to travel or live with uncertainty. The Respect for Marriage Act ensures federal recognition of legal marriages, but doesn't require states to issue licenses. Couples could find their rights changed simply by crossing a state line. The result: years of legal battles and uncertainty for hundreds of thousands of families. States aren't waiting for the Supreme Court. Some, like California and Colorado, have repealed old bans and enshrined marriage equality in their constitutions. These moves reflect growing public support and a desire to protect rights at the state level. Meanwhile, conservative states like Idaho have passed resolutions urging the court to overturn Obergefell, signaling readiness to ban same-sex marriage if allowed. State courts are also testing the limits. Texas recently allowed judges to refuse to perform same-sex weddings on religious grounds. The result is a fractured legal landscape, with rights varying dramatically by state. The battle over marriage equality is far from over, and the legal environment remains uncertain. Kim Davis vs. Ermold and Moore is more than just one woman's legal fight. It's a case that sits at the crossroads of law, personal conviction, and the evolving definition of American rights. What began as a local dispute in a Kentucky courthouse has grown into a national conversation about the boundaries of religious liberty and the promise of equal protection for all citizens. At its core, this case is a test of civil rights and the stability of Supreme Court precedent. It challenges the very foundation of landmark decisions, questioning whether the rights established by the highest court can be undermined by individual officials. For same-sex couples who built their lives on the promise of Obergefell, the stakes are deeply personal. Their marriages, families, and futures are tied to the assurance that their rights are protected, not just in theory, but in practice, everywhere in America. The case reignites a passionate debate over religious freedom versus equal treatment under the law. It forces us to confront difficult questions. Can personal beliefs justify denying public services? Where do we draw the line between faith and fairness? Supporters of Davis see her actions as a defense of the First Amendment, arguing that no one should be forced to violate their conscience in the course of their job. Opponents warn of a dangerous precedent, one where the rights of citizens hinge on the personal beliefs of government officials, threatening the very idea of equal rights for all. The Supreme Court's decision to hear, or not hear, this case will send a powerful signal about its direction on civil rights, religious liberty, and the durability of its own rulings. If the court takes up the case, it could trigger a new era of legal and social upheaval, reopening questions many thought were settled and forcing the nation to re-examine its values. The outcome will shape the rights of millions, influence future generations, and define America's ongoing commitment to equality, justice, and the rule of law. As the nation watches, the story of Kim Davis reminds us that the fight for civil rights is never truly over, and that the path toward justice is shaped by the choices we make today.